The mighty Mafia king fell on one knee. His head looked up towards her as his eyes burned with so much need for her that it made him want to claw. His heart out. "Diana, please at least look at me. I need you. I yearn for you," Kane said as he hugged her left leg, seemingly to never let go. Diana looked down at him. Her body stiffened with the mightiest of men on his knees begging. For some reason, it delighted her. It made her give a cruel yet beautiful smile as she used her index finger to raise his chin up. "You think I'll let you go just like that? I would disappear for now, but when I come back, you are mine," Diana said with a smile so possessive that it gave Kane a weird sense of relief. Slowly standing to, his full height as he towered over Diana, his hazel eyes locked on hers like a predator watching its prey, a cold yet sinister smirk formed on his lips as he crashed, his lips onto hers claiming every inch of her, her scent, her body, and even her mind. He a powerful don at the mercy of a girl whose was even crazier, and he like it. Slowing his pace, both gasping and out of breath, they stared at each other as Diana's tracker buzzed in her ear, an indication that she hadn't done her part of the deal and fell back onto this man embrace like the desperate lovesick person she is. She didn't want to do this. Her heart fought desperately for her not to do this, but she sacrificed anything to see her man in power, even if it's to eject herself out of his life. With the threat over her head, she pushed him hard away from her, leaving a very confused Kane. "What's the matter with you? You keep pushing me away and then reeling me back in. Is something going on that I don't know?" Kane asked with visible irritation as he presses himself to her again, this time his hands pining hers to avoid pushing him away. "I'm done with you, Kane. I don't want to ever see you again." Diana switched her aura and eyes with a hate he had never seen or felt. It scared him terribly, and as Kane stared at her and he laughed, "You are joking, and the fact you think I'd let you go is cute," Kane said as he tried to kiss her, but she remained firm, avoiding his lips as Kane frowned. "I'm pregnant with another's man-child, and I love that man, so please," Diana said, sounding weak as if he was hurting her, and Kane quickly let her go. Confusion etched on his face as he stared at Diane clutching her belly. "What?" Kane asked in disbelief as Diana threw an already prepared fake pregnancy report, intimate pictures of her and an unknown man, and voice recording of shared times with other men towards Kane as he bent down to pick and examine every one of them, and his eyes widened in shock that his love hand an affair and is pregnant with another man's child. As the realization dawned on Kane, a surge of anger overwhelmed him as he started trashing the office, screaming as he flung the papers, tables, chairs, and broke windows. "Get out!" he screamed as Diana, with her own heart broken from seeing Kane this way, left hurriedly knowing staying longer will get her killed for real. Walking down the long golden spiral of stairs, the house quiet with only the rage and sound of things breaking from Kane's office was heard. Quickly she removed the annoying bug earpiece in her ear as she flung it to the marble floor and stepped on it again and again in anger of what she had done, and why because of no other than a woman she hates with her whole life. "Diana, the earpiece did no harm? And what a fantastic job. You did well, and of course a deal is a deal." A middle-aged woman spoke as she walked down the other spiral of stairs, walking towards her with a slight evil smirk. "My son would definitely be happy without a poor gold digger like you by his side." Mrs. Jones Kane's mother spoke with a satisfied smile as she handed Diana a cheque of 10 million. Diana, with a small smile, only stared at the woman and collected the money as she placed it in her bag. "Do you know why I like you, Diana?" the woman asked, gently brushing away an imaginary dust from Diana's shoulder. "Because you are just like me. A woman who knows what she wants and gets to that point by any means necessary," Mrs. Jones said with a smile as she stepped back away from Diana. Diana, with a firm look, didn't even answer her as she walked out of the house. Suddenly, she heard a voice that made her stop in her tracks. "Diana." Kane's voice boomed in the large room as she looked up to face her ones, love now standing in his full strength and height. Her heart stirred in longing of those strong arms around her again. "As you leave, make sure I never lay my eyes on you ever again, 'cause if I do, I'll kill you." Cain said with such hatred. He walked away, not sparing her a glance. As soon as she watched him walk away, she turned and left, muttering to herself, "You think this over, Cain? No, this is just the beginning." Part 2. In a small, dimly lit room, only a red fluorescent bulb glowed in the drawer room as pictures of Cain was hanged all over the place, where he went to work, where he went to business meeting, and even more pictures of how he killed his victims. Diana sat in her black leather chair as she held a picture of Cain soaked in blood after a kill. It was her favourite picture of him, as he always looked regal in this state. It had been a month since, and summer break was over since the fallout, but Diana had held hope that he'd call her, or want her back, like how he'd always done before. But as a month clicked and no calls and no text or a word, Diana had resigned herself to her own little heaven, where she can have him and control her raging need as her obsession was slowly cracking from him being distant. She had also accepted the money, and now, from a poor broke freshman to living in a good penthouse, and most importantly, her mother's surgery paid in full, and now she was healthy, but still she knew she had to get Cain back. But for now, he hated her. "Oh, my darling, I prepared breakfast," Regina spoke as she pulled her apron off, giving her daughter a cheeky smile. Diana couldn't refuse her mom, so she sat and ate silently, even though she was anxious to go to college and see Cain again. "Are you okay? You seem oddly quiet." "Again?" her mom asked worriedly, as since she left the hospital, she found her once happy and bright girl had suddenly dimmed. Diana, not wanting to worry her mom, simply smiled and kissed her mom in the cheek as she stood up to leave. Grabbing the keys from the counter, she stepped out and entered her new car as she drove off. "So, the rumours are true. Your knight, in shining a moor, has abandoned you." A cold yet mocking voice came from behind Diana as she closed her locker door as she turned around to face the group that always bullied her. And now that Cain abandoned her, she was left to face these maniacs again. "I can't wait to teach you a lesson just like old times," one of the bullies say, as she was pushed roughly back on her locker, making her dizzy a little. Then from across the hallways she saw him, Cain, walking down the hall with all his handsomeness, as her eyes lingered, never breaking. Her obsession wanting him badly, as she instinctively moved towards him, but was pulled back to reality as she was pushed back again on her locker, making her groan in pain. Their eyes locked, and for a brief moment she saw something flicker but was quickly masked as he looked away from her and walked straight ahead, not minding whatever happens to her. "I can't believe it. He abandoned you, and now for all the humiliation I faced because of your ex-boyfriend, I'll teach you a bloody lesson," the head of the bullies said with so much hatred as he tried to give the unamused Diana a blow, but was instantly blocked by her hand as she gave him an uppercut straight to his jaw, leaving the rest shocked as they always knew she was weak and hid behind Cain. "Your biggest mistake was thinking I was weak, and I am not done with you as we'd continue after school," Diana said in a mocking manner as she walked over a whimpering boy hold his jaw in pain. "If not for Cain teaching me fighting and guns and I still learning in a paid institute, those bullies would have had me beaten to death. But it felt good beating someone and a good output for my obsession and anger," Diana thought as she blanked out in a class as the teacher called her attention. "Miss Diana, please tell us on what standard was Juliet in the wrong in the story Romeo and Juliet?" the teacher asked as Diana answered. "I say Juliet was never truly wrong. She wasn't just able to express herself faster and more clearly leading to his death, but without a doubt she had loved him even in her death." I second that a voice spoke, getting the teacher's attention. "Oh, Mr. Cain, what is your input?" "Juliet was not intentional enough, because if you had planned on not taking the poison, then why did you not let your lover know? Why keep him in the dark and he saw her die, and him knowing living a life without her was miserable than death, which led to him also taking his life? And that's to tell you why love might get even the strongest man killed just cause of a woman's silly mistake." Cain spoke, staring directly at Diana like he was talking to her, the air and tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Diana didn't argue more with him to the teacher's disappointment for an interactive class, but she was scared to face his anger, questions, and so she decided to die out her want. Her need. He hated her, so no need. He needed to become the strongest, and without her. Later that day, casually walking to the empty alleyway, where her bullies had arranged as she need this outlet, 'cause deciding to let Kane go was suffocating her, and her next best thing was someone's blood. Shockingly, she was never like this. Always a well-behaved child loved by both her parents, never asking for too much and always obedient. Her parents called her a golden child. But that night when her father and brother died in front of her when going shopping together, something snapped. Her reality twisted and in a way she couldn't place. She was quiet and not speaking for the first 3 months, making her already sick. Mom worried. She went to therapy, but finding out if she misbehaved or talked more abnormally, they'd send her to the asylum for kids. She talked and lied, accepting whatever fake drugs and care they gave her, and soon she was discharged and back home. But then her mother fainted and slipped into coma, and in that darkness, she met Kane, the man that saved her from drunk men in the bar that wanted to have her. And not just that he kept saving her. From school bullies to getting the men that killed her brother and father, and she remembered clearly when she stood there with him in that cold, dimly lit room as it illuminated the killer's face, and she recognized them. How could she forget when they hunted her dreams for months? "Do you want the honors of killing them, honey?" Kane had asked her as she nodded, taking the gun, and in two fluid motion they died screaming for their lives, and in that moment what had snapped in her back then was alive again, and she knew she craved the bloodlust, and with Kane came with it, and on that day she had fallen madly in love with him. Rounding the corner, readying her small knife, she heard 2 gunshots ring out, and with that she turned to find Kane splattered with blood all over his hands and clothes, and seeing the last of the bullies kneel, hands together, eyes closed and begging for mercy. But Kane just turned towards Diana as he gave a sly grin. "They touched you, my Diana, they touched my Diana," he said as he cocked the gun, aiming at the remaining alive bully. "No," she screamed, stopping him in his tracks, and looked at her. "Let me," she said, walking over to the boy, a very wide grin on Kane's lips as she walked to the already frightened boy, and with one fluid motion sliced his throat as she watched him fight to grasp air, and then an arm wrapped around her from behind, locking her in, his grip, and then she snapped, her last straw of mental control broken, as she turned and kissed him so hard as their bodies held in blood and sweat, and neither minding but deriving great joy. With one fluid motion, he lifted her up with one arm around her waist and another supporting her to wrap herself around him, neither breaking the kiss. "I've missed you," he whispered in her ears as she moaned in delight of hearing him say that. Soon his phone rang, its noise slicing through the already charged atmosphere. Diana stopped making him groan in reluctance as he vowed to kill who had dared disturbed him, and then he picked the call, the voice telling him its news as blood drained from Kane's face. Diana, still oblivious, tries to touch his pale face, but Kane took a step back from her, like as if reality dawned on both of them where they were and that they weren't together anymore. And that thought weighed heavy on Diana. She couldn't do this to herself nor him. She can't live without him, and she needs to tell him the truth. But Kane's voice cut through her thought. "Don't even think what happened a moment ago was me still showing that I cared. I don't, and I never will," Kane said sharply, his words cutting into her deeper as she grabbed his arm, roughly making him stare at her. "You think you can just walk away from me just like that? You are mine, Kane, and I will have you," she said in a manner of faculty that made Kane's eyes glint in possessiveness. He had tried hard to keep locked in, and with a sharp movement, he held her hair tight, titling her head to look up at him. "Do you forget who I am, woman? I am King Kane, the Don MAFIA of the Russian Empire, and you a small fry I took pity on. Showed a little affection, too, think she owned me after even betraying me. Do well to know I'm leaving you alive, because we once shared something before, but now it's over. I have no use of an unloyal woman, and most of all, go fuck your new man, and get the fuck out of my bloody sight, you disgust me," Kane said, breathing so hard on her face as she smiled wickedly at him. "Do you know why I always wanted you back then? And now was because I said so, and now you playing hard to get. I promise you. My king, I will have you, and I will have you wrapped around my finger as well." she said, knowing fully well how aroused he was to her saying this as he pushed her away and left without a word or turning back. Diana stood there in the pile of blood and bodies and picked her bloody knife as she whipped it with the dead boy's clothes and turned and left. Part 3. 6 years had passed in a blur, and everyone had moved on after the killing of 3 college students 6 years ago, and Kane had never returned to the school ever again. And as for Diana, she became popular, and after multiple business deals, she had become the richest woman in Russia. And 6 years in, she's sitting in fancy cars and luxury apartment, and the only thing she finds joys in is triggering her ex-boyfriend. Madam, I have found 3 men who fit the description on the body type you want, Diana's assistant says as she enters the office with 3 men covered in a black polythene bag that has the face of Kane boldly imprinted on it on their face. Are their face covered? Diana asked in an icy cold voice. Yes, ma'am, the assistant says, as Diana slowly turns her office chair facing the men who volunteered to roleplay Kane for her pleasure. Looking at the men who had only a boxer brief on. She stood up slowly, her alluring and beautiful body swaying to the sound of her heels, her eyes capturing all 3 men as she sized them all up, her hands grabbing and touching every inch of them until anyone one could even give her a feeling Kane once gave her. He had gone missing, disappeared without a trace. His operations still function and even gained fear outside the country, but since 6 years ago, no one, even Diana, had seen Kane. This was where her obsession had taken her. Her hunger for Kane reaching the max of getting other men to act as him or die trying. Men who come in are either curious or desperate for the money. The first always dies easily as they fall for a woman they never get to see, only touch. And the rumour of the men killer soon spread both wide, and as people prayed their sons don't get bewitched by her beauty, and the latter stay longer. But they disappear. Even Diana don't know what happens to them, but that didn't stop her. Sir Kane, Miss has ordered another set of men again, Kane's assistant says as he enters the dimly lit office, as he sees a man dressed in all black tight shirt and cargo pants, tattoos running up both muscular arms and piercing on his left ear, hair in a buzz cut so neat it can cut glass and face bared of no hair. His grey eyes locking on the CCTV camera watching his woman grab and touch other men in her office. His only solace is she use. He's faced to cover these men, and that relief was soon shattered as he watched her from the camera he had secretly installed in her office, clear everyone out as she had chosen her new fake Kane. With clenched fist, he slammed the table angrily. His assistant flinching in fear as he ran out, not wanting bore his master's wrath. Again and again she keeps doing this, and even those that stayed longer Kane had personally killed, so they wouldn't grow too fond of each other, but then it should be him. They're banging her so hard she cries in pain and joy. Should be him holding her down and penetrating her in every hole in her body, and with that, his body ached, and his dick bulged as he brought it out and rubbed vigorously. He craved Diana so much it killed him, as no woman even quenched what she ignited in him 6 years ago, and as he watched his woman being held by another man. Her moans heard as Diana in the camera looked straight at the hidden device, startling Kane. Did she see the camera? But that was impossible as it's invisible. But then Diana's eyes stayed longer on the camera, as it was, as if she was watching him, asking him to come for her as she came, and without thinking he jerked off, and for the first time he felt relived, something he hadn't felt in a long time. He offed the camera as he called, his assistant, For the grand ball invite, Miss Diana. Kane spoke as the assistant nodded and left. Soon the night of the ball came, and this ball held every year was no simple ball. It was a ball held for the 1% of the 1%, where big shots and other big shots give their children in marriage alliance, and where both criminals and legal billionaires mix and mingle. But Diana had never been invited, even though she was in top 5 richest woman. And because of that, so many people had rumours that the money she claimed she had might have been stolen or worse, inherited from an old sick man. But the rumours didn't stop Diana, as she dressed in a sexy red off-shoulder diamond dress, walked into the room and stole the entire breaths of every man in the hall. Breathtakingly beautiful, she came down the stairs as all eyes fixed on her. Why is she here? Isn't her wealth fake? The rumours around her circled, but nothing really made her care but an exception, the man she had looked for and dreamed of every night. Her man, Kane. Standing tall above her on the higher floor of building, their eyes locked, and a tension so strong between them and so palpable it could be cut with scissors. Both froze, none able to take their eyes off each other. Until someone called for Kane's attention, did they break eye contact. For so many years her heart never stopped beating widely. She needed him like human needed air. With a swing of her champagne, she dropped the glass on a waiter's tray as she strode towards her target, but was blocked by a man she didn't wish to see right now. "My princess, it's a pleasure seeing you again and here." The man spoke with a knowing look as he stared at Diana like a piece of meat. "Mr. Manuel, whatever had happened between us was a mistake, so please leave my presence this instant." Diana spoke with hurriedness, afraid Kane will disappear again. "And why should I? You left me high and dry because of Guy who'd left all those years, and now every year you look even disgustingly beautiful. And to be honest, I must have you." Mr. Manuel spoke coldly as he held her shoulder, making Diana tense slightly. "Confiding in this fool was my biggest mistake. Back then I was vulnerable and need a shoulder to cry on, but he wanted to sleep with me, and I just couldn't do it. So I left, and since then he's been stalking me, and now this, I should have killed him when I got the chance," I thought, as I heard a loud bang, and coming to my senses I saw Manuel sprawled on the floor crying in pain as he held his foot. "The next part to get shot would be your hands if I ever see you lay them on her again. Guards, take him out," Kane said, his voice booming in the large hall full of people as they shifted far from the bloodbath. Only Diana stood there staring at the man who read my mind. With a wave of hand, the band and music and waiters went back to normal like nothing ever happened. "Let's dance," Kane said as he took her hand and led her to the dance floor to a slow-pace waltz. As they spun in the room, both their eyes and hearts locked on each other, and need so raw it was undeniable. "I know the truth," Kane said, making Diana tilt her head in a question. A slow smirk formed on his lips. "I've missed that," he said again. Nestling his head on her shoulder, smelling her fragrance, his need igniting into flames only her could quench. "I know you said those things because my mum forced you and threatened you as well, using me as bait, and I know you don't have a man nor a baby, and those pictures are fake. I found out the day my mum died. She could see how miserable I was, and said the truth. And I came back to tell you back then. I was sorry, but seeing you surrounded by friends and living a normal life, it felt selfish of me too, drag you to my world. So I stick to watching you from the shadows. And I'm sorry, Diana, I'm a king. I should have investigated nor accuse you," Kane finally said. And it was like a storm had faded, and his heart felt lighter. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I know you wouldn't believe me over your mother, and I needed proof. But then I accept your apology as I held no grudge. But what made you think now is the right time to come back to me? Diana asked, as she swayed her gown slightly as they danced around the hall. Let's just say seeing you picking different fake canes really pissed me off, he said, laughing softly, as her cheeks flushed red and her mind riled in disbelief. He knew, oh my God. One question. Why did you collect the money? Did you sell me for 10 million? Kane asked as they both stopped dancing and walked up the stairs to his hidden office, ignoring every pair of eyes on them. In a way I did. Well, after all the drama your mum put me through and you ignoring me, I couldn't just sit in poverty plus. I had my own dreams of becoming a respectable woman, not just your wife. And also because if I was so rich, it would be easy for me to find you and you to find me. It was more of my selfish gains. Diana spoke, ignoring the surprised look on Kane's face. This woman, you surprise me every time, Kane says as he laughs lightly, sitting on his couch as he puts her on his lap. I don't mind how and what you use the money for. I'm just glad you always think about yourself. And now you should also be selfish with me now and think about me too, Kane said, resting, his head on her chest, feeling the softness. And I'll even give you more money. I have so much, so do with it as you please, Kane says, ignoring Diana's soft laugh at his antics as she strokes his hair. You know I never say no to money, so that's a sweet deal, my king. And also, I love your new look. Yeah, I changed when I saw you going for more men with tattoos, and I have your name in there somewhere, I think, Kane says as the office filled with Diana's laughter. Kane listened to Diana as her laughter filled the room. He didn't know why he had allowed himself to suffer and had deprived himself of love. His love. They both stared at each other, the tension palpable and hot. A silent vow was made in their hearts too, never separate again in this life and next. The end. We, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching till the end. This story is dear to my heart, and, of course, the characters are questionable, and that's what this channel is about. I bring stories of villains and totally wrong people who fall in love. There'd be violence and serious plus 118 content, so viewers be advised. And if you like these dark romance stories, then support me because that's what motivates us. Thank you.